Think for life. Let me try that one more time. There we go. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Global Gap Creating Sustainable Theater. Before we dive right into it, I want to leave the graphic up for a little bit because how good do our panelists look? I just want to talk to them and find out all about them and find out all about what they have to say about sustainable theater or non-sustainable theater. But before we do that, I just want to do a quick plug for Global Forums Theater Festival. We are deep in the midst of the festival, which is running from June 1st to June 11th, and today is June 7th. So if my math is right, we have 4 more days of programming, and we have a whole weekend of shows at Rattlestick Theater and a couple more virtual programming, and it's our 4th year of Global Forums Theater Festival. We're always so excited to have this platform to showcase immigrant artists' work and immigrant artists' talent to all of New York City and beyond. So this session is on Zoom because we also want to cater to our friends whom we have roped in over the years and are overseas right now. And this session is being live streamed so that if you're overseas and you're not watching this in real time, you know that we're thinking about you. All right, so let's get started. Let me stop share and introduce you, our panelists. In no order of favoritism, it's just a matter of whose last name comes first, if you're wondering. So Nana Dakin is a queer Thai American director of New Work, Plastics and Device Performance based in New York City. She's a core member of B Floor Theater, Thailand's most highly awarded theater company, and of Superhero Clubhouse, a company that creates theater to enact climate and environmental justice. Did I say your last name right, Dakin?
No, but thanks for asking. It's Dakin. It's easy to remember, so you have to think of Dakin rhymes with bacon.
Oh, I assume you're not vegan.
I am not.
Great. Bacon rhymes with bacon. Okay, Nana Dakin. Dakin, I like it. All right, very smooth and buttery, like a bacon. All right, next up we have Alejandro Fajardo.
Yes.
Yeah, that weird pause, ignore it. Fajardo, yeah. And Alejandro is a Colombian lighting designer who, fun fact, is actually in Colombia right now. Check out that brick wall situation. And Alejandro has designed escape rooms, a series of theatrical immersive games, site lighting to musical festivals and various New York Fashion Week show, and of course theaters, lots of theater production design, lighting design. So Alejandro wears many hats in the theater industry. All right, and next up we have Tianding He. I hope I said that right.
He. Yeah.
Okay, she's getting specific with me because she knows I speak Mandarin. Because every Mandarin word has 4 sounds. It goes he, he. Yeah. So it's
He.
he is the 4th one. Okay, Tianding He.
Yes.
I'm on a mission to learn and pronounce everyone's last name across all cultures, right? Thank you for correcting me. And originally from China, Tianding is a theater director, object performance deviser, and arts leader based in New York City. And Tianding's production of The Discarded just wrapped last weekend at Global Forums Theater Festival at Rattlestick. Yeah. And with every production that Tianding works on, she really strives to create them in the most sustainable way possible. So I am very excited and pat on my shoulder for putting all 3 of you in the same Zoom room because I really am excited for what you have to share. But before we get to the meat of the topic, I want to get to know all of you a little bit more. Let's start with a question that I popped in my head, which is, if you can visit any natural wonder in the world, what would it be? And natural wonder, I'm talking about like a mountain, dive into the any natural wonder. Anybody? Something that comes to your mind? Please. I'll give you a second to think. I know I sprung this on you.
I'll go ahead.
Yes.
I would love to explore the Amazon.
Yes.
Dense tropical rainforest.
Yeah, so I assume that you're not afraid of humidity and heat
No,
and bugs.
no, and I would probably only be able to do a small window of time in my explorations, but I feel like it's such an important part of the world, and so beautiful and so unique that I would love to go there.
Yeah. How do you feel about bugs?
Definitely probably not prepared for Amazon bugs, but I spend a lot of time with bugs in where I am here.
Ah, I see. Thank you for sharing that. Amazon. Wow, it brings me green, right? The green really like
Mhm.
smacks you in the face. Tianting, Nana, any thoughts? What's your natural wonder?
The first thing pop up in my mind is Mariana Trench.
Oh, cool.
Wait. This is bringing back geography classes. Is it deep in the water? Or is
Yes, the deepest part of the whole globe.
it right?
Yeah.
Oh, did pay attention in geography class.
Yeah.
Wow. And it wasn't there a submarine that went down before and like shot videos of it.
I think so, but it's almost still like impossible to get there because the pressure and the air and like the light, everything, it's impossible. So it's still a mysterious area.
Wow. Now it makes me want to pull up all the documentary about deep sea diving and the gnarly creatures that there are under the wow. Okay, what about you, Nana? So we have the Amazon, we have under the water. Where's your space?
The thing that popped into my head is actually closer to home than both of those things. It's actually just Yosemite National Park, which I've never been to. And I would really love to visit.
Yeah, Yosemite. What was that? What was that movie by that dude who free soloed that wall? I'm a rock climber. I should know all those names. Alex Honnold. He free
Yes.
soloed that Yosemite wall, and
Mhm.
that really, yeah. You think about rocks in different ways. Like, can a human conquer it? Is there a human space to conquer it? Anyways, I digress. One last question. I think I'm getting to know all of you a little bit more. One last question. What currently watching on Netflix or any streaming platform really? I'll start. I'll start. This is super geeky of me, but I don't know if any of you still watch Survivor. But the season 44 just wrapped and I'm like, what do I do my Wednesdays now, because it's Survivor Wednesdays, it airs on Wednesdays. So now I'm watching old seasons of Survivor and I'm just like binging through it and yelling at my TV about all these people whom I've never known. I'm watching Survivor. What about you folks? Go ahead, anyone can jump in.
Oh, I think still Netflix is the biggest one, but during COVID, I don't have theater to go. So I barely watch TV before, but during COVID, I think I finished everything I want or I can on Netflix. So I don't really have anything else. So I have to go to other platform, but I have to pay more because you charge a different fee. So it's ridiculous. Yeah, now theater is reopening and I'm going back to theater, pay for theater.
Aww, perfect role model answer. Alejandro, Nana, what are you watching these days?
I've been watching, I got about halfway through it and I was like, I wasn't prepared for it. But I've been watching Alejandro Inarritu's new movie, Bardo, which is a really interesting, specifically around Latin and US multiculturalism. It's a really interesting, just poem film. I don't know. It's, very surreal, very symbolic, but very interesting.
Yeah, do you spell Bardo, Bardo?
Yep, correct.
I'm like collecting list of shows to watch. Bardo on my list now. Thank you, Alejandro. What about you, Nana?
The last thing that I watched was American Born Chinese on Disney Plus.
How is that?
It was good. I mean, it was fun. It was fun to watch, especially if you're a big fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I am. You see all of those
All three of the main actors are also in this, and although in varying degrees. And yeah, it was just fun it was a good thing to watch at the end of the day to just go into a fantasy land.
So what I'm gathering, and I know you're trying not to give spoilers, is like a chill, sit down, not to be taken too seriously kind of show.
Yeah.
Okay. And
fantasy adventure.
That is on my list for sure. Michelle Yeoh, man. Michelle Yeoh. Okay, I'm talking too loudly right now. I mean, because Singapore is just across the water from Malaysia. So like I'm like clapping as a neighbor and also as an Asian and also as a woman. And for her to achieve such success in her later years, love it. Okay, we can talk more about that other times, but tonight is about creating sustainable theater. So let's dive right into it. I know like these three words, creating sustainable theater. What do you folks think about? And interestingly, I promise this is not digressing. We just had a panel about intersectional storytelling and climate crisis on Monday, and Yuna, who's a dean at NYU, her closing comment was very interesting. She said, when you think when you hear eco theater, yada yada, the word sustainability is being thrown around always, and she's the most skeptical of this word because sustain what? Sustain what? And companies are throwing it all around, and here we have a panel about creating sustainable theater. So today we are going to dive into it and answer this question, sustain what? So that Yuna, if she ever watches this, she won't be skeptical of the word again. So for the three of you, when you hear creating sustainable theater, what comes to mind? Like, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? Anyone can take the question. Oh, everyone's
I'll jump in. Yes, I'll jump in this time. So I mean, I think that the first thing that I think about is actually the people. So this is something, I mean, I think that very often people, rightfully so, are thinking about in terms of sustainable theater, thinking about materials, things that you can touch in your hands. But the thing that I think about are the human resources, like all of the people that are involved in a production. And I've been thinking a lot just about like, what does it mean for each individual? I've had a lot of these conversations with folks over the years to feel like they are able to work in a way that feels sustainable for themselves. And then also thinking about like when you are creating, each theater project becomes like its own ecosystem. And so thinking about like the humans inside of that ecosystem and how to make the project and the workflow and the ways in which you are creating sustainable for the folks who are working inside of it is the thing that I think about.
Do you think you think about that because you're a director, or as Nana, you're naturally like a people person?
Probably because I'm a director, I would guess.
No, that's very, because depending on what's your discipline in the theater industry, so that's very instinctive for you to think that. Yeah. What about and then I'm interested here. Let's say Alejandro, do you think about physical stuff?
Well, I do think I do think starting with the people is really important because this is a really heavy and intense and exhausting industry. And I think even for us to like really get to the point where we can be forward future thinking about ways that we can minimize our environmental impact, it sort of has to start with us being ready to ask that question. And this industry really values or really benefits from people being pushed into the process of making theater, which in my experience has actually led me to think less about the work that I'm doing, because I'm just like having to meet the deadlines, having to get that schedule, in right, So I definitely think that like starting with the people is really valuable, because once we're able to have some personal peace and some more space within our like creative practice to think about the ways that our art making affects the environment, that's when we can really start this long process of thinking how we can minimize that impact. And as a designer, I'm I really spend a lot of time. What I've been enjoying about production design recently is thinking about ways that we can still create sort of this magical space that the theater is, this like a space that is an invitation for the storytellers and the audience receiving the story to really engage in that making. And again, I feel like the industry's values are about the wow factor, are about like how expansive can we make it, how realistic can we make it. And all those things are really impactful when you get a good production. But then we're doing that at the expense of all this material that then gets used once or then gets thrown to a basement and wears down. And especially with my experience in commercial work, it's for when it's a marketing event, it's really just seen as that one thing, and it seems like really high stakes. So large companies will throw a lot of money in making these shows really spectacular. And I'm just more interested in the like sort of letting go of all that extraneous filling of the space in favor of making an environment that can feel a little bit more immersive, that can feel a little bit more in a smaller scale, and really allow us to make that theatrical magic of showing you one thing and building your expectations in one way, and then like really creating a magical world out of very little. So that to me, that's where it's a mix of the material and the human.
Thank you so much. Oh, so are you a people person, Alejandro?
Yeah, I'm very much a people person.
Yeah, I can in your sharings, I can feel more and more of your passion coming out. And what about you, Tianting?
I think of object first. Because I did a lot of object performance, especially after coming to the US. I didn't know anything about puppetry, but as like an new immigrant Asian female artist, I have all the tags as minority. And then I find it's pretty hard for me to present my face as in this race, in this gender on stage. That is why and how I get into puppetry and then experimental puppetry object performance. And I'm also a researcher, so I learned a philosophical conception called object-oriented ontology, which means the world is not a human-centric world. Nothing really exists because of us human. They have their own existence, and we are also object. So when I'm talking about object, is not only materials, non-human material, but also including human. So I feel like we're equally existing in the whole world, and we can never really understand each other, even in the same species, in the same form. But we have relations. So that is the basic idea of object-oriented ontology. And all my work, including the idea of sustainable theater, is based on this idea, because I think theater is really human-centered, a human-centered field. And because of that, I barely hear people in theater really considering of other props, materials like papers, bindings they use, and even the architecture, the space. I think they just pay very little attention to those things because they're not as superior as human. And theater is always about humans, so we can consume anything to make something a human want to express. And that's something I am a little bit skeptical about. So I'm trying to use my creative process, including rehearsal, including making object, and also rehearsing in the space, just show respect as a whole team to everything. Because we just have done the discarded, and we did a lot of research about how different type of waste, actually traveling around the whole world, but they actually never really disappeared. And then I start to think everything we buy, even for theater as a prop, or as a human in life, I buy a new piece of clothes, and then I can think because I know if I throw it away, it's gonna traveling to Ghana in Africa, and people will suffer from there. So I think learning more about the journey of different objects, which is similar to an immigrant, like where are they going? What is their experience? Then I will take one more second when I try to buy something. And then I will rethink how I can keep it and reuse it in all different ways. Yeah, that's my idea. And I'm pretty new to sustainable theater. I feel I start to have this idea, especially after COVID, because I start to feel about land and nature. Living in the city, depressing city for a long time, I feel really like floating somewhere in the air. But after COVID, I feel, oh, I lost my connection with the land and with the real world, with the nature. So then I come back to really think about green theater and sustainable theater. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your process, Tian Ting. And it's also really interesting I never thought that this question could be cultural. You know, the way that you mentioned that, you know, as an Asian female in the United States, you know, you almost want to cover your face, and therefore puppetry, the object, you know, emerge, and that is why your headspace is like, okay, sustainable in the object field. Yeah, so you know, you shared a little about the discarded, and which just closed. Let's talk about some shows that all of you have worked on, and since we're on the discarded, let's spend like 1 or 2 minutes on that. What was so challenging about discarded when you were trying to be sustainable about it?
Yeah, so the discarded, our goal is to use all recycled garbage. We clean it and we use it to build a trash mountain and to make it into all the puppets and objects. But the whole process is not very easy because there are different type of garbage. Some are organic garbage, which is not going to be used in theater. And then we have to pick up cleaner garbage, which is a really weird idea, but there are different levels of cleanness of garbage.
What on the scale, what is clean, super clean garbage?
We have been thinking about that, actually. I think it's really hard to define what is clean. And the definition we make is actually really related to human. It's about attachment. So the thing we collected all the garbage the people use in my own team, which
so from your home,
cleaner.
You know the origin of it, so that's clean.
Yeah, but it's kind of ridiculous because thinking deeper about it, why the thing I use, I feel is cleaner than the thing other people used. And why my team member. Yes, yeah, because I use it and I feel I'm clean, then that thing is clean. And my team is cleaner than all the rest of the world, which doesn't make sense. But that's how we start to think naturally, oh, we're collecting them. And also when we're trying to collect a bunch of plastic bottle, we made it like an ocean using plastic bottle and fairy lights in it. It's pretty hard because all the garbage, all the plastic bottle, recycled bottle are collected by the waste picker. They're making money out of it. And they're also one of the main characters in my show.
Sorry, Tian Ting. Fun fact, we found out that one bottle that people collect, it sells for 6 cents.
Yes.
So if you take it away from them on the street, you're literally taking their livelihood away from them.
Yeah, and the anecdote is our set designer, because it's really hard for us. Most of us in the team is using our own bottle, so we don't have those. And then our set designer came across with a whiz picker, like an Asian whiz picker who didn't even speak English, and she was trying to buy a bag of bottle from
Okay.
them,
Yeah.
but they refused.
Oh,
They're like, I can
what
pay you
if
$20.
was it above market rate and they refused?
Because actually we don't really know how many bottles in the huge bag they're carrying. And my set designer said, okay, if it's 6 cents per bottle, then I'm giving you $20. That's like 300 bottles.
Okay.
But actually, we really don't know. We don't know their life. We don't know how they. I just met some under my apartment today, and I feel I have no idea about their bottle, their life, their income. So that's something we find is very interesting. We eventually kind of have to make adjustment of the set a little bit, because then finding trash, the perfect trash, is not easy.
And
And
perfect trash.
yes, like virgin trash, which is a term like in the trash recycling system. Like the local trash is called virgin plastic.
Oh, wow.
It's ridiculous. And all the imported ones is not virgin.
Not virgin trash. Okay. Thank you for teaching us some new terms. I'm learning a lot right now. So let's move on to Mammelephant. And Mammelephant, when it was staged in 2019, correct? It was one of Vulture's top 20.
Oh, sorry, it was not staged in 2019. It was staged in 2021.
2021. My apologies. 2021. It was one of Vulture's top 29 plays and musicals that they can't wait to see all summer. So to help everybody visualize what Mammelephant is about, we have a video for you. Give me 1 second. I will pull it up. Thank you for correcting me, Nana. And here we go. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. Mammelephant Superhero Clubhouse presents
tusks of hands of icy clays, of now, of then, of pride, of pain. Ooh, I began long ago, time and time again. I go on with you now, holding what I can. I began long ago, time and time again. I go on with you now, holding what I can. We are what we make from us as mountains as sand. We are what we make from us as mountains as sand.
wow. Does that bring back memories?
Absolutely.
Yes, and in fact, sorry, I'm like, not even 2021, 2022, last summer. The years, they just.
I didn't even
blend.
think about it.
Wait,
Yeah, it's
I
only last
actually
year.
have in my notes. The world premiere took place during 2022 summer in Manhattan.
Yes.
Oh, wait, the video is still making sound. No, I want to hear everybody talk. Sorry about that. Yeah, 2022, what are years?
Wild.
So this is a musical about exploring displacement and identity in the era of climate change through the eyes of the world's first mammoth elephant hybrid and the humans confronting rapidly thawing Arctic permafrost. Tell us more. I was just trying to be dramatic. Now tell us more. What were your challenges putting this up, trying to make it sustainable?
I will maybe jump in and talk a little bit about our timeline, Alejandro, and then I definitely want to pass it on to you. I mean, I think that one of the things, speaking of, why the confusion around like, wait, what year did we do it? It's actually because it was a production that was interrupted by pandemic. So the first time that I was brought on to start talking about, to join the collaboration of this project was was at the end of 2019 into 2020. But the project had actually begun its development a long time before, which Alejandro was a part of, and I joined only later on. But so one of the biggest things that happened immediately was because of the interruption of pandemic was thinking about just the sustainability of being able to continue to plan for and try to hope for the production to take place itself. Just casting our minds back to that time in early 2020 when it was like, we don't even know what our future is altogether. Like what is going to happen? We don't know. So there was that was one part of it, was just about like, and thinking about, listening to your answer earlier, Tianding, it makes me think about another keyword that we talked about a lot in this production, but also within Superhero Clubhouse, is this word interdependence, and this idea about like the ways in which we are all connected. So the very first challenge was actually for all of us to continue to stay connected to one another, to continue to stay connected to the dream of this production, and to continue to adapt. There were many changing circumstances that happened when it came to how this production would be able to materialize. And so there was a lot of adaptability and flexibility that needed to happen in the process itself, which actually mirrors the storytelling of the story, which was all about like, how do we, when we are faced with very difficult and changing and new and surprising circumstances, what are the ways in which we seek to adapt and be flexible to those in order to carry on? So with that, I'll pass it off to Alejandro.
Can I add one thing? It brings me back to our opening question: sustain what? And Nana, what you just said is sustain the passion for this show, the vision to see this show come to pass. Like the pandemic could have like made that dream of the show died off, but everyone was, like you said, interdependent, interconnected, and that dream kept on going. That dream was sustained, and so there is the stage production eventually.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're blowing my mind, Nana.
No, because I do think like what we were talking earlier, like at the root of this project, even from the workshop productions early on, is this idea, because I think this is an integral idea of Superhero Clubhouse, is this like human egalitarian way of making theater where everyone's experience is really valuable, everyone's comfort is really valuable. And Nana does such a great job of holding space for that and bringing people in to really like to not just do a task, but to like help devise a show in a way. I mean, it wasn't totally a devised show, but there was so much humanness and individuality from the performers and from all of us built into the show. A lot of the questions of the show were like this ongoing process of us questioning like what the show is about, what our role as humans on Earth is about, what our future looks like, and things like that. And we really, so in making it in this like egalitarian way, there's a whole side of us of the human sustainability of it, of a growing company trying to figure out a way of equitably paying everyone for this sort of style of making, which I think really the personal investment from everyone, from like Nana, the director, Lanny, who wrote the show, the performers, the whole, my assistants, like the whole team was really invested in like, wow, this is really cool people telling a really good story and a really important story. And it really, I mean, that's such like difficult space for me because it gets very close to like, this is your passion, so we were going to pay you less for this. But I really think Superhero Clubhouse was asking themselves, great, how can we set a pay structure? Let's make a model. Let's try out a model on this production to make it sustainable for the humans. Yeah. And then there was this added layer of like, theater making is wasteful, and how can we, the show takes place in a lot of different places. It takes place like in New York City, in all of us as our individual selves being in that space. But then it also takes us around the world. We're in Siberian Russia, where the permafrost is melting. It's releasing a bunch of CO2. So the natural environment, it was really, really valuable. We didn't have a huge production budget. So trying to find like a lot of the really great resources that we have access to in New York to help provide some of the materials. So we ended up, one of the key things that we knew was recyclable fabrics and or natural fiber fabrics would be really valuable for us. So you could see in the video the sort of background space was this
net looking
burlap
thing.
fabric. Yeah, it's like a jute netting. It's erosion cloth. They use it a lot for landscape management. So we early on, I knew that was sort of a central, like there's a lot of weaving in the story, both as storytelling and literal weaving. So we had all these sense of like, how do we weave things in and out? How do we create a sense of place, of hills, of mountains? So we used a ton of recycled material. Materials for the Arts was an amazing resource for us to find. We basically, created this like giant burlap structure and then wove through it all these scraps of fabric to help represent water, to help represent land, to give us some division of space, to take in some color. And it was a really interesting environment. We like, I was fireproofing the burlap and it rained. So there was this moisture in the burlap. And unintentionally, we created this environment where you walked into the theater and it just smelled like, you were just like really taking to this like organic space.
Yeah.
And then we also did a lot of work on the back end to think about how to, give all of those other materials a home. So we found some designers that were needing scrap fabric. Part of the set is actually being installed, I think, literally today in Prague for the Prague Quadrennial as part of the US exhibit at the Prague Quadrennial. So we really were trying to think about like, how can we minimize buying new material? We did buy the burlap, the natural fiber burlap, but everything else, all these other tons of fabric that we were able to find from material for the arts and just weave it and then find appropriate ways of disposing of it as well.
Yeah, I was thinking using some terms that we just learned. So the jute net is virgin recyclable net. Now that it's in Prague, it's non-virgin.
That's right.
Am I using it right? Am I applying it right? Yeah. But one thing, in all seriousness, one thing that you talked about really drove it home for me, because we've been talking about how sustainability really needs to center the human resource. And you also talk about how Superhero Clubhouse, is thinking about this new model of pay equity. And I really believe as artists, when there's so many productions out there because of a small budget, everyone is underpaid, we do it for passion and exposure. But when you're paid equitably, you just go like, whoa. And it's this good energy that you bring into the rehearsal room, you bring to the production that just trickles down. And it just uplifts the whole production in a way that can't be generated in other way. You're showing the human being that they're being appreciated, and in our capitalist world today, appreciation most often measured in monetary value.
Yeah, I mean, like in capitalist terms, we talk about work as like grinding of people, which is such a horrible way to think about ourselves and our labor. Because feels so clear to me that when we have the space and the time to like develop over a long period of time and be paid for that time to develop it, right? And really sit with our ideas, sit with the concepts that we're playing with, sit with the aesthetics that we're playing with, it really opens up a door for us to like invest our energy into the project in a different way, rather than just like trying to get through it as fast as possible so that we can move on to the next thing that's going to make our money. And this like endless search of like, where can we find money in theater, not just for productions, but for like our well-being is just such a setback for like for how big and how broad our imaginations would actually be able to go if as artists our needs would be met, and we would be able to actually like have the space and time to dream of questions about, great, how do we change the future that we're really being forced into by the society that we live in.
Absolutely. And I have it here in my notes. I don't know why I didn't scroll down earlier. So the early development for Mammelephant was at Here Arts Center in 2019 and then staged in 2022. So that's like a 3-year production period. Like, so, and people are not burnt out, you know?
Yeah, there was a really, like, that first workshop really was sort of like what was like the first draft of it. And we really like, I mean, it was such a joy. We probably had, I don't know, 3 or 4 sessions between 2020 and 2022 where we met, you know, at Abrams Art Center or met via Zoom or had individual calls with Nana and Lanny, the playwright, to really like dig into the ideas. And it was such a refreshing, I mean, it was like one of those many, many Zooms that were happening in the pandemic, but it was like such a refreshing community and questions to come back to.
Love it. Let's move on to the next question. Nana and Tianding. So I know the both of you are directors. So this question is for the both of you. So when we talk about the green vision, does it start from the both of you? Does it start from the director and does it trickle down as a vision? Or how can the director, you know, collaborate with someone like Alejandro, the designer, or even the actors to make the whole thing sustainable? Where does it start from?
I can share my experience. I think about that question for a long time. I think it should be everyone in the team. It's not like one person's responsibility to call on everyone's doing this, doing that, because I also made device theater, and I think that aligns with the idea of green theater, because we're trying to decentralize human in this whole world in theater. And then we're also trying to break the hierarchy in the theater. So I think I believe people who is director, who is producer, actually producer is also super important because they're in charge of paying money and getting all different things. But I feel like all the people, like stage managers, actors, and designers, usually people share the similar idea first, maybe on different level, and everyone in the team have to be like proactive and have to be like trying to do as much as possible, instead of one person have to tell everyone, you have to be green, because then it creates a new hierarchy and also make people feel, oh, as a director, you are the green person and you are trying to make the world better and you are trying to make us look bad. It can happen. The power dynamic can be like really complicated. But I also understand all the people have different understanding of that. And we are all learning from this process, creating this green theater piece. And there was one like little anecdote is we didn't get enough plastic bottle. And then one of the member in my team was like, okay, maybe let's buy 2 boxes of water and then we can drink it during the rehearsal. Then we can get the recycled bottle. And I was like, no, that's not the way we should do it. We shouldn't like trying to make a slogan that we are using recycled material. So we buy the new material and we consume them. Then it becomes recycled material. This is a lie. And that is a lie to so many commercial companies. Like even large companies, all of them are trying to say, I'm using recycled material, but actually they're charging users from that. From the whole process, they're like greenwashing themselves just for marketing reason. So I feel as an artist who really want to create sustainable green theater, we're gonna make effort to make it happen. instead of going through like a short way but easier way and still make us look good, because this is nothing about looking good. We don't need to marketing ourselves as we're green. We just really want, that's what we want to do. That's where our passion located. Yeah.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that it boils down to the personal lifestyle of each individual and bringing those habits with them into the rehearsal room. What do you, what do you think, Nana? Should this from you? No pressure.
Well, I mean, sorry, what did you say, Jody?
Should it start from you, the director, the Green Vision?
I think that, I mean, the thing that I think it's important to know as a director is knowing what power you hold in a production. So knowing that, like, I think one of the most important things is that the director actually does have, to a certain extent, hiring power, along with the producer, in a way that many other, like, actors cannot advocate for the other actors who are going to be a part of the production. So I think in that way, having that leadership power is a responsibility of the director. And therefore, I think, as Tianting is saying, you can then, when you are in the process of deciding who you are inviting onto your team, this is something that you can ask folks about, like, what is their value system? I think it comes down to this. You were saying earlier, Jody, about like personal lifestyle, but I actually think it has to do with checking in with folks about their values, and also about the sorts of things that they are interested in investing in, or being a part of, because I think that sometimes, Tianting, you're saying, I also feel like I'm still new and still learning about what does it mean to be a sustainable theater artist. And I think being in conversation with folks, like, so for example, with Mammelephant, it was so helpful to have many team members who bring like different kinds of value systems, different perspectives, different ways of being able to think about, like, how do we problem solve something? So as you were just saying, Tianting, there's a particular problem, and then you think about it and different solutions are offered. And finally, it's like, okay, let's go back to our values. What do we really care about? And so being able to have that, and I think that that is something that a director can take a real leadership role on, especially if they are assembling a team, and being able to, I think, really advocate for that as well, as part of their leadership position. Because sometimes, I have also been in a position where I've been working with folks and it's like, they really value, I'm just going to use an abstract example. They really value yellow lighting. And it's like, okay, they want yellow lighting. All right, so now because they want this, I am thinking about this, but so it might not have been my initial value, but because they are placing importance on it, and if I am an open person, then I'm going to take that in and be like, okay, now I will allow myself to think about that, to be changed by it, to place my attention on it as well. Which brings me to, I think, like, one of my favorite quotes from Adrienne Maree Brown, who talks about how what you pay attention to grows. And I think about this a lot as a director, that, a big part of the role of a director is like, what am I paying attention to? And so thinking about, like, the things that you are paying attention to as a director, and the way in which, like, that then allows other people to pay attention to those things as well. So if sustainability and gathering folks who share values of sustainability in your production team is a value that you have and something that you want to grow inside of the production, I absolutely think that that's something that the director is in a very good position to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking with an actor hat on, when going into auditions or trying to be as open an artist as possible, it's only gonna help us when we enter a room and the director and the producer are assessing whether to hire us or not, and not particularly when it comes to whether I recycle or not, but whether I'm open to share similar values or subscribe to a different value that I haven't come across, which is openness. is what I'm hearing really pop up from your sharing. So let's talk about things more tangible. I know we talked a little bit about how Mammelephant and the Discarded, source recyclables, virgin and non-virgin recyclables. How else, can we think about being sustainable with the tangible stuff? I know a lot of talk has been about what about the outdoors, but also funny enough, haha, right now in New York, we can't go outdoors. I believe Tianting, you were supposed to be in Central Park for a rehearsal for a show and it was canceled. Even when theater productions are trying so hard to be used as little resource as possible, we still have elements like a forest fire that can jeopardize the plan. So how else in our closing can we think about sustainability when it comes to like the more tangible stuff?
Yeah, I'll jump in because I think something that while Tianting and Nana were talking came to mind is sort of this idea of what are you paying attention to, right? And we think so often about the end product, about what does the show look like, what does the set look like, but actually the practice of theater making is this like ongoing process, and so I've a practice. I think this is like when you start composting. This is at least when I started composting, and started realizing like, wow, like so much of my waste is recycling, so much of my waste is organic matter, and there's actually just this like smaller pile that is this like landfill waste. And trying to think about, it just makes you aware of where the waste is. I've been, one of my practices is like, okay, what's plastic? How can I minimize throwing things away? What is bought new for each production? There's so many, like stage management comes in the first day of rehearsal with these like boxes of fresh office supplies. And there's like this ongoing process of all of the bits that we end up throwing away in theater making that come from that. Now, obviously there's like this whole conversation about like printed scripts and can you move towards digital scripts? Can you save some paper? There's I've worked on a lot of processes where we've been able to use recycled binders as opposed to having to buy like new binders for everyone. So I do think it's this process of not just thinking about the end product, because that obviously is really important, but thinking about the process of getting things. Shopping in Amazon, like, can you buy secondhand props? Can you buy a lot of things from one vendor so that you're getting one shipment, as opposed to like, the theater world loves Amazon so much to just be like, oh, we need this tomorrow, and we need this tomorrow, and we need this tomorrow. And then you have these like mountains of cardboard, plus all the like waste of transportation. So I actually think it's like a practice of noticing waste. Like maybe it's tied attempting to some of the ideas that you were talking about of like waste doesn't have to be dirty. And just trying to identify like in any process, what you're getting rid of, what you're throwing out every day. We think a lot about this in terms of water bottles as well, but then it's fascinating to also end up in a theater where there is no place to fill up your water bottle. And you're like, okay, well, this is not sustainable. So I think it's important to like keep this this look on both sides, both of like the production and the end and like the set that you're building or whatever, but also the day-to-day rehearsal, how you're commuting, how you're dealing with the things in the room, that also becomes waste.
Yeah, thank you, Alejandro, for expanding the conversation to look at the whole process. Like I didn't even think about it. Yeah, I may have a bottle, but what if the theater doesn't have something to refill? I guess NYC has like tap water from the Catskills, but non-NYC people might not be so lucky. So what about Nana and Tianting? How else can we think about sustainable in our closing, if you have any wisdom to share?
Oh, I think there's one thing like about paper, because I know theater people has special addictions, and paper is one of them. So, and I love paper too, but sometimes I feel it's not necessary because we're changing the script while we're developing it, and we're making marks all the time. I know some of the theaters now in some workshops, they provide the theater as an institute, as an organization, they buy a lot of iPad, so not all the individual have to buy it. So all the people who are coming to work for it, they can have an iPad instead of like musicals, even as a workshop presentation, it has such a huge amount of papers and so many actors. That's all tons of paper. And it takes energy to print it, and then no one will keep it because there's no space in New York City apartment to keep so many paper. And so I think using digitalized script is one of the things I've been doing in my show. Even people don't have larger like iPad or larger screen. I think using phone is not the best way, but if our value is to make it more sustainable, it doesn't hurt. Everyone has a phone. So it's not the best way we do it, but I think there always, if people want to figure it out, it's always a way to save paper. And I also feel like this is not only an individual or even like a individual production team responsibility. It is we need a system because after my show, right now I have to rent a public storage to keep all my garbage. Which is my props and set. Okay. Yeah, which is my set and props. I'm gonna use it later, but I have to pay for extra money for that. And for other productions, if they finish their show, they just throw everything away because there's no space. Space is the most expensive thing in the city, in big cities, and they cannot keep it, so they throw it away. And I know like material for the arts, and also there's a costume recycling department in TDF. So we use that a lot because we are also lower budget. We also have low budget. We have to find a way to make it work. But that is a problem because the theater is not building a system to recycle and reuse everything. That's why we have to buy, even we're sharing a lot of similar material, but we don't know each other and we don't have a space to keep it for the next people. So that is the problem, I think, is like, we cannot really solve it. We don't have enough money and fundings to do that, but bigger organization, they can help to do it.
Yeah, but I think you really nail it in the head right there, that if we want to figure it out, we can. It's a matter of whether we have the will to figure it out. All right, Nana, final thoughts.
I will just add in very philosophically, even though you asked for this to be more tangible, but essentially, I think that thinking in any process about like what are the resources that we have that are in fact abundant, and what are the things that are scarce. And I think that, the example that you brought up, Jody, around like, oh, okay, are parks abundant? Is that like abundant free space that we can use? And our funding is scarce, so that is a thing that we can go and take advantage of. But just, I think, thinking of those two things and being able to brainstorm together about like, what are the needs of the production? What are the needs that we have as humans in this particular moment, and then being able to, I think, categorize those things and like, here are the things that are abundant, here are the things that are scarce, and then seeing what are the ways in which you can try to make really lean into where the abundance is, rather than, I think what often happens is that like we focus on all the things that are scarce, and then that actually ends up being the thing that drives a lot of waste that ends up happening.
Wow. Nana, I think that was the perfect philosophical closing. Thank you for taking us in that direction. My mind is like sitting with so many different thoughts of what you three have shared, and I hope our audience are as well. This session will be on YouTube to the end of June. So if you want to sit with it, replay it, listen as a podcast on your walk to the subway or trying to pick up trash for props, please share it with other theater communities as well in your home country if you're not in the United States, because if our passion for theater stays alive, we have to think about how to make it sustainable. So I can't thank Tianting, Alejandro, and Nana enough for joining us this evening for this wonderful session and sharing your wisdom, your experience, your sage advice, philosophical or tangible. And it has been an amazing evening. So I just want to close it out with, you know what's coming. Could you hear that? No? Oh, dang it. No. One more time. Am I getting it right this time around? Second time's the charm. I was just like self-hyping just now. Thank you so much. And we have more Global Forms programming. Go check out Rattle 6 website. Alejandro, Nana, Tianting, you're all gems and gems in the theater world. I hope we get to meet each other in person soon, and have a great rest of your Wednesday evening. Good night, everybody. More soon.